When I was a kid, my sister and I would go and stay with our grandparents for a week during the summer. My parents would take us to a pool to swim at, take us to the fair, let us stay up late and order pizza at 11 o'clock at night even when we shouldn't have been. They were the fun grandparents that any kids would have loved to have. My grandpa was a funny man, always telling us stories that he most likely made up and always joking. He played a lot of games with us. One of the games was called Gramboa. He told us that Gramboa was a Polish monster that ate little kids in the middle of the night, and of course we didn't believe him. But when you're a kid, it's always fun to be scared, right? When he decided that he wanted to give us a scare, he would start going around the house turning off all of the lights one by one. We usually didn't even notice that he was doing this until the house was dark. There wasn't really a point to any of this besides scaring us. Sometimes he would go into the backyard through the sliding glass door into the master bedroom. His shirt over his head and drag his feet. He would scream when he saw us through the window and it would scare the life out of us. At this point, we would usually run and hide and hope that he wouldn't catch us. We always hid in pairs or groups, but one night, I wedged myself amongst the shoes in the bottom of the master closet. My older sister decided she wasn't going to fit and took off down the hallway to find another spot. I was alone, and about 10 at the time, utterly terrified. As the sound of her footsteps faded down the hallway, all I could hear was my own breathing. Everyone was hiding. The house was silent. Suddenly, I heard the sliding glass door open. I froze. I could hear the shuffling of feet on the floor, and I tried not to make a sound. My heart was literally beating straight out of my chest. I knew at any moment my grandpa was going to pull the closet door open and jump at me and make some kind of scary noises to make me scream. But the screams weren't coming from me. It came from somewhere else in the house. It was my sister. When the screams faded and giggles began, my sister's muffled voice started talking excitedly, my grandma laughing, then my grandpa's muffled voice praising them for the good hiding place. The sliding door slammed shut and I heard the footsteps on the concrete in the backyard running. I stayed frozen in the closet for a while, terrified to come out, not wanting to face the fact that somebody else had come into our living room just moments ago. So there was a guy in my closet that I'd like to never see again. The first time I come face to face with this strange man was about 7 years ago. It was a normal summer's day. Now I didn't have a terrible childhood, but I didn't have a great one either. My mum was struggling to make ends meet. We lived in a really crappy 2-bedroom house. It was my mother, her boyfriend, my 2 younger brothers and myself. My mother works nights and so did her boyfriend, so it was up to me to watch over my 2 siblings in the evening. It was just like every other normal summer's day at first. My friends and I hung out during the day, walked around our small town, enjoying the weather and whatnot. Now, for it being a small town, there was still plenty to do. Walk through the woods, go to the park, typical kid stuff. We decided to waste time at the park until I had to go home and watch over my brothers. It was normal boring stuff. We walked around, played basketball, and stuff like that. We sat on the swings and spoke about our lives and what we wanted to do when we got older. Now it was nearing 3 PM when we noticed a guy sitting on the bench over by the basketball court. Now, it was nearing time for me to get home anyways, and as the man was giving me and my friend a weird vibe, we decided to leave. As we neared the main street, which my friend's house also happened to be on, we decided to part ways. I get home, my mother sees that I'm late and has a go at me. She's then off to her work. We spend most of the time indoors now, watching TV or playing video games. It's around 7:30, my brothers want to go outside to take their bikes out. It's just getting dark, so I agree. They ride their bikes for about half an hour. I'm currently sitting on the curb looking at my phone, texting my friend about how bored I am, when my youngest brother, who must have been 7 years old at the time, comes up to me and points towards our house. I just look up in time to see what looks like a man walking inside. I immediately told my brothers not to worry and continue to ride their bikes, and then call my mum and let her know what's just happened. She calls the police and they show up within 5 minutes. They then do a full search of the house and literally find nothing. They speak to my mother on the phone and tell her that there's nothing to worry about and that it's just our imagination. I tentatively get my brothers back to the house. I sit them down and turn on the TV. I mean, the time really flied at this point. It's already 9:30. I really got them going to bed quick. I was surprised at this. I then head upstairs to go to our closet. All 3 of us share one bedroom, so all of our clothes are stuck in one closet. I turn on the closet light and start digging through the pile of clothes on the floor that we never get around to putting away. I then hear a noise that sounds like a deep breath. I think it's just my imagination, but I continue to pull out my pajamas from my brothers. I grab their PJs and then go to pull the string that turns the light off, and out of the corner of my eye, I suddenly see movement. I look over and see that there's a face glaring back at me, peering out of a pile of clothes. There was a man sitting under our clothes, hiding in our closet. I suddenly decide to book it. I don't even have much of a chance to look back, and I can see that he's struggling to get out of the clothes. I don't stop running, down the hallway, down the stairs, knocking over everything and anything in my path. I'm trying desperately to slow him down. I burst into the living room, grab my brother's arm, practically pulling them out of their sockets and attempting to drag them from the house. I eventually managed to get about 3 blocks away before I stopped dragging them. I reached for my phone to call the police, but it's not even in my pocket. I left it on my couch. So we hoof it. I drag my brothers behind me in the middle of the night. They're tired, they don't know what's happened, and I won't tell them. They don't need to know. They would never want to go into our closet again. I get to the police station and they call my mum. They drive us home and she leaves to work early. They then do another full search of the entire house and once again find nothing but the mess I made. No evidence, nothing. They basically told me to stop wasting their time and left. My mother of course believed me, but she still had her suspicions about what I was saying. She says that I can stay the night at a friend's house if I can get a hold of someone just to make me feel better. We all go inside. My mum sends my brothers to go and get cleaned and ready for bed. I walk over to the couch where I left my phone. It wasn't there. It's on the floor, smashed to pieces, obviously by a hammer, seeing as the hammer is sitting right next to it. I call my mother over and show her the mess of the phone. She walks over to the storage cabinet, pulls down the toolbox we have and she opens it and finds our hammer still inside. I didn't realise what that meant at the time, but now I think of it, the man was inside my home, in my closet, in my room, with a hammer, just waiting and hoping for me and my younger brothers to fall asleep. Part of my previous job requirements involved doing bi-weekly inspections on HUD properties. These are vacant government-owned homes that were contracted to list to be for sale. A lot of these properties are in pretty unsafe neighbourhoods. One in particular remains my least favourite, and that's out of over 500 to this day. Upon arrival to this specific house, it was apparent that something had happened here. Somebody had been making meth or something had went horribly wrong. A fire occurred, but there was no record of a fire with the previous contractors. The neighbours also said that they had no idea what we were talking about. Not only that, the local fire department and police never responded to a fire. Now I had my fair share of problems with broken windows and stuff like that, but this one afternoon, I pulled up in front of the house and started my inspection like I usually did. I started by walking around the house and going to the garage. Immediately, a car down the street started honking the horn. I thought this was weird, but this isn't the best neighbourhood, so I just ignored it. This house has a garage built into the back of the house, so they've converted 2-bedroom windows. There was no door from the garage in the house. In order to enter the garage, you had to go through a single door on the left side of the property towards the back. I should also mention that the heating system of this house is such that all of the heat comes up from the middle of the house. then through a big open vent covered with a screen. The duct tape work is gone, so you can literally see right through the thing and then into the crawl space. So I got into the garage and I noticed the crawl space is open. I look up and notice one of the bedroom windows is also open. I stop. Both of these should be closed. I then just stood there for what seemed like forever, and I contemplated calling the police, but I'm in such a hurry that I just turn around, go back out the door and lock it. I got into the front of the house and the car down the street is still honking its horn. So I start my inspection as I usually do. Kitchen, living room, bathroom, bedroom 3, bedroom 1. I then go to open the hallway closet that's in between bedroom 1 and 2. It won't open. I know I've opened it before. I'm turning the knob and pulling it back and it will not open. I start getting this really weird feeling in my stomach. The car outside is still honking. I then step over the vent in the floor to go to get to bedroom 2, and I look down to see a pair of eyes staring straight back at me. I look up, wipe my face, look back down, and they're gone. I ran straight out of the front door, into my car and locked the doors. The car has now stopped honking. This is what I think had happened. When I got to the house, there were 2 people inside. The person honking the horn warned them that I got out of my car. One of them had time to jump out of the window and into the garage, then to the crawl space. The other one only had time to jump into the closet. When I ran out of the house, then the horn suddenly stopped. They were signaling that I was leaving. I returned to the property 2 weeks later and found all the windows shut. The crawl space door was broken but open. I didn't enter the house this time. I called the police. They found the closet door shut again and 4 officers were unable to open the door. Upon return 2 weeks later, the door opened with ease. Now I'm convinced that somebody was in the house with me upon many visits I'd done. I don't know what they were doing there, whether they lived there or if they were plotting something on me. I really don't like to think of it. My twin sister and I moved into an old duplex a couple of weeks ago. We're in a unit above 2 other younger women. We got an amazing deal on the rent. Considering that this is such a nice neighbourhood full of wealthy families at a very low crime rate. It's super nice. Hardwood floors, exposed walls, and more storage space than we even knew what to do with. Giant closets in literally every room. My sister and I felt safe and quickly settled in. Now a few nights ago, I was in the bathroom taking a shower. My sister was in her bedroom on her laptop. Even though I felt reasonably safe in the home, I always made sure that the doors were locked and deadbolted. And this was since we lived on the upper level. I always had worries about people coming in through the windows. My sister had forgotten to lock up after a couple of times that we'd moved in. Fortunately, it didn't look like anybody had let themselves in though during this time. At that moment in time, I felt really safe and secure. So I'm taking my shower and just kind of spacing out. Our shower is one of those where there's a bathtub with a wraparound shower curtain. So I'm in there just showering off. I turn around to rinse the shampoo out of my hair just in time to see the bathroom's closet door fly open. It bangs against a wall. I'd like to say that my survival instincts kicked in and I immediately got out of there. But I just froze. My eyes were going wide open and my hands still had the soapy hair in them. A man then sprinted out of the closet, barely even looking at me, and ran out of the bathroom and around the corner to where my front door and sister's room was. I screamed my sister's name and scrambled out of the shower, barely even stopping to throw a towel on. I sprinted out there and chased after him, worried he was going to hurt her. Before I even turned the corner, I heard the front door open and his quick steps down the stairs. And then suddenly the opening and slamming of the front door as he ran onto the street. My sister literally stepped out about a second after this. She was very confused as I ran to deadbolt our unit's door. I was shaking and crying, not even able to string out 2 words. She put 2 and 2 together and quickly phoned the police. Since I only saw the man for a second and my sister didn't see him whatsoever, the only description I could give was that he was in his 30s or 40s, was a white male. He still has not been found. I still have no idea what he was doing in my bathroom or how he even got there. I don't know if he was trying to rob us or hurt us. Maybe he was just homeless or something like that. I really don't know why nothing happened, but regardless, my sister has got a lot better about locking our doors and we're way more paranoid than we ever were before now. This experience happened when I was 13 and is something that I've never forgotten. We had just moved into a brand new house in a brand new housing development. There were a lot of houses around us and they were either unfinished or had families that had just moved into them. Behind our house, there was a lot of fields that were mostly used for future houses. Now, we lived in a fairly safe small city and the housing development was very quiet for the first few years that we lived there. By that I mean nobody ever bothered locking their doors. Every night, most of the time, we felt really safe about not doing so. Now, my parents had just put down some hardwood floors so that the house would echo every single story. So one night, I was trying to fall asleep laying in my bed and I thought I heard the backsliding door open. At the time, I was the only one awake, just sitting there on the internet. I remembered that I left my door slightly ajar so that way my cat could come and go as he wanted, so I knew I definitely wasn't just hearing my cat. I froze, hoping it was just the door, but then, a moment later I heard it slide shut. Then I began hearing what sounded like heavy shoes walking across the hardwood floor. It was a very specific sound and suddenly, I really couldn't breathe. The footsteps were slow and quiet, like they were trying to make as little sound as possible, but because the floor was wood and our house had high ceilings, each step echoed down the hallway to my room. Then I heard them stop, and the sound of the hallway closet being opened and then quietly clicking back shut, just like they had tried a doorknob pulling the door shut behind them and then releasing it quickly once it was in place. It was silent after that. My heart was beating so fast I actually began crying. The only way to my parents' room was up the hallway, but their door was only about 20 feet away from the hallway closet. I was frozen. I honestly thought I was about to pee myself because I was so scared. However, it was silent for a long time, and I knew that I might be able to get to my dad, so I stood up and walked sock-footed onto my floor. I stood there for a long time just breathing. Then I ran. It's not a long hallway, but I went as fast as I possibly could. I got inside their room and tried waking my dad. "Dad, Dad." I frantically whispered. "Huh?" Half asleep, he replied. "Dad." "What is it?" "Dad, I think there's someone here." "What?" "Get up, I think there's someone in the house." "There's no one. Go back to sleep." "Yeah, there is." I started crying. That got him up. My mum also wakes up as well, so they both jump out of bed. My dad, who's sure nobody's in the house, doesn't even grab a weapon, but I followed behind him as he leaves the room. He goes into the living room, passes the chest, turns on all of the lights in the house. I remembered standing in the living room, knowing exactly where the person was and not being able to say a thing. He then looks at me. There's no one here. He doesn't even check the closet though, and I don't tell him to. I'm so afraid that whoever's in there is going to jump out and try and kill my dad right in front of me, and I can't have that thought that I'm responsible for my dad's death, so I simply say nothing. I don't even tell him to check the closet. I don't know why I didn't, because I'm sure that he was there. My dad then goes to lock the front door and tells me to go back to bed. I then suddenly hear the closet door open again, just as slowly and quietly as it had before. Then the footsteps began again. I could hear them so clearly walking towards the kitchen. They suddenly stopped. That was followed by the sound of the back door being slid open and then quietly pushed shut again. I then hear the back door click into place. Suddenly, there's all silence in the house. I'm laying there crying and breathing, but I'd then hear them leave the house. I felt instant relief though, and I was still shaking with fear. I'd given it a few minutes hoping they wouldn't return, and luckily for me, they never did. So after a bit I sneak out there. This moment in time, my only thought is that I have to lock the back door, which I managed to do so, but the scariest part is that when I looked to the hall closet, the door wasn't closed anymore. It was cracked because they hadn't bothered to close it and they kind of messed up the door a bit. It was definitely them who had opened it, as I was certain my dad had shut it when he was there with me. I even tried bringing this up with them years later and they still don't believe me. Around 19 years ago, in a suburb of St. Louis, my aunt and twin cousins were coming home from dinner. My uncle had been working late the past few days and it was just 3 of them. They pulled into the drive and Jess and Steph ran inside, while their mum pulled the car into the garage and settled things down. There were only about 6 of them at the time and they ran straight up to their bedroom. They played a bit then went to bed. While they were there, Jess was throwing off her jacket and Steph was kicking off her boots. Jess suddenly got a really weird feeling. She didn't want to open the closet. Steph was just jabbering away and Jess went pale and suddenly turned towards her, mentioning that she had to be quiet. They had quite a shallow closet and you could clearly see that there were some toes sticking out as well as a dark shadow. Luckily, I don't know if it was fear or resourcefulness, but they quietly made their way out of their bedroom and back downstairs. Their mum was down there and Jess calmly told her that somebody was in the closet. Of course she was confused by this and she was made to repeat herself, again this time more frantically though. And realising that both of their faces were drained of colour, she quickly pieced together what was happening. They sprinted out of the house and then across the street where they called the police and my uncle. After the police arrived, they pulled out what appeared to be a homeless person in handcuffs. When they found him in the closet, he was trying his best to stay out of sight still. He was also found with a kitchen knife near his feet. He'd broken into their house and quickly hidden himself with that large knife and was proceeding to make his way to the girls' room when he heard us. What's creepy about this is that he specifically targeted the girls. He was going to wait for them to go to bed. So here's some information before I dive into the story. I'm an 18-year-old female and I still live with my parents and brothers. We live in a fairly decent neighbourhood. It's middle class for the most part. A couple of weeks back, I had just gotten back from work. My mum was downstairs playing on her laptop as usual and I went upstairs to use the bathroom. Then I went into my room and began catching up with my friends and texting. I was just texting friends back when I heard a crack from my closet like something had moved. I stared at it for a moment and instantly become paranoid. I'm one of those people that hears a noise and decides that somebody's going to try and murder me. So anyway, I stare at it and decided I was going downstairs. I leave my room and close the door. I decided to wait outside the door to see if I could hear any more noises. My closet is right next to my bedroom door and I heard slight shuffling sounds coming from inside it. I finally had enough of this and I sprinted downstairs and told my mum that there was somebody in my bedroom and that we needed to get out of the house. We both got out of the house and locked ourselves in the car and waited for the cops to arrive. The cops come and searched our home. They then found a man scrunched up hiding in my bathroom closet. I really wonder what the hell he was doing in there. They found no weapons on him and he didn't appear homeless. I also wonder how on earth he got there and how long he'd been there waiting. When I was younger, my mother and I both lived in a very old house. We only lived there very shortly though, and this is the reason why. The reason that I only learnt when I was much older. Apparently, when I was asleep in my cot, I would always start screaming randomly when I was left alone. My mum didn't understand why because I would only do it in this one specific room right up the top. There was always this closet that I would just stare at and she had no idea why. It always freaked her out. This happened one night and my mum got really angry. She come into the room and screamed at whoever or whatever it was to leave my son alone, and she took me to her bed and we both fell asleep. My mum was then woken up by whispering next to her ear. It said, "So you want to play a game with me?" My mum instantly bolted up and looked. There was nobody around her. She instantly ran back to the room. She also realised that she had only been asleep for about 5 minutes as she caught a glance of her alarm clock. She found that all of the clothes had been thrown out of the room and were all tattered to pieces. It almost looked like claws had done the job on them. Just as she realised this, standing there petrified, she heard laughing back in the room where I was. She then ran and grabbed me and never returned to that house again. Hello my Insomniacs, I hope you all enjoyed this video. My voice is really starting to go and it's really strained at the minute, so sorry if my voice doesn't sound normal on this. It's bad, but I can still narrate, so I'm going to keep doing it. I'm very close to having my merch done, so make sure you keep an eye out for that, and if you have any stories you'd like to see me narrate, then make sure you send me them at my email. I'll have it on screen now and in the description. I hope you're all well, and I'm going to get responding to all your comments on my last video now, as well as all my current ones. Thank you everyone, take care.